Let me ask you something most people never think to ask. What if being smart is actually hard? Not hard like solving a calculus problem. Hard like carrying a weight that nobody else can see. Hard like sitting in a room full of people and feeling completely alone, not because you don't like them, but because your mind is operating somewhere they've never been. Society sells us a simple story. High IQ equals success. High IQ equals confidence. High IQ equals an easier life. But cognitive researchers tell a completely different story. And today, we're going to tell it honestly. This video isn't about intelligence as a trophy. It's not about feeling superior or making comparisons. It's about something far more specific, the quiet, invisible psychological weight that comes with a mind that simply won't slow down. If you've ever felt like your brain is both your greatest asset and your most exhausting companion, what you're about to hear might finally put language to something you've felt for years but never quite found the words for. Let's get into it. Most people can finish a conversation and move on. Highly intelligent people finish the conversation, and then the real conversation begins. Inside their head, at 11 p.m., at 1 a.m., at 3 a.m. Neuroscientists studying default mode network activity. That's the part of your brain responsible for internal thought, self-reflection, and mental simulation, have found that individuals with higher cognitive capacity show significantly elevated activity in this region, even during rest. Translation? Their brain doesn't have an off switch. And here's what makes this particularly interesting. It's not anxiety. It's not worry in the traditional sense. It's a mind that is genuinely, biologically wired to keep processing, keep analyzing, keep asking. But what does this actually mean? For someone on the outside, it looks like overthinking. For someone living it, it feels like being the last person awake in a building that everyone else has already left. There's a specific kind of frustration that highly intelligent people rarely talk about openly. It's not that they dislike people. It's that most conversations leave them feeling, subtly, hungry. Like they ordered a meal and only got the appetizer. When your natural curiosity pulls you toward questions like, why do systems fail the people they're built to serve? Or what does it actually mean to live a meaningful life? And the conversation around you is about weekend plans or TV shows, the gap can feel enormous. Developmental psychologist Maraka Gross, who spent decades studying exceptionally intelligent individuals, found that social disconnection was one of the most consistently reported experiences across her research, not because these individuals lacked warmth, but because genuine intellectual resonance was genuinely rare for them. The result is a particular kind of loneliness. Not dramatic, not visible, just persistent. Like always being one frequency off from a station everyone else is tuned into. Here's a paradox that surprises most people when they first hear it. The smarter someone is, the more likely they are to doubt themselves. Not because they're weak, but because intelligence gives you an almost uncomfortable ability to see your own gaps. Every claim you make, your mind immediately stress tests it. Every decision you consider, your brain runs it through 17 possible failure scenarios. Psychologists studying metacognition, thinking about your own thinking, have found that higher cognitive ability is directly linked to greater awareness of personal limitations. In other words, the more clearly you can think, the more clearly you can see exactly how much you still don't know. This is why so many high IQ individuals quietly struggle with what researchers call intellectual imposter experience, a persistent internal voice that says you're not as capable as they think you are, even when the evidence says otherwise. Intelligence doesn't silence self-doubt. For many people, it amplifies it. This one is important to understand correctly, because it's often misread as laziness, arrogance, or attitude. It isn't. Research in neuropsychology suggests that highly intelligent individuals have dopamine systems that respond differently to routine stimulation. Ordinary tasks, predictable environments, repetitive structures. These don't just feel dull to a high IQ brain. They feel genuinely depleting, like running a high-performance engine on the wrong fuel. This is why so many brilliant people struggle inside conventional structures, traditional classrooms, standard corporate roles, rigid 9-to-5 routines, not because they refuse to work hard, but because their brain is neurologically designed to seek a level of complexity and novelty that those environments simply don't provide. And when that stimulation is missing long enough, it doesn't just feel boring. It starts to feel like something is quietly dying inside you. Take a breath for a second. Because if any of this is landing close to home, if you've sat with that restless boredom, or that quiet loneliness, or that endless internal noise, I want you to know something before we continue. These aren't personal failures. These are documented, researched, understood psychological patterns. And understanding them is the first step toward navigating them with a lot more clarity. All right, let's keep going. Highly intelligent people are often their own most demanding audience. Not because they're perfectionists by personality, but because their minds can construct a vivid, detailed picture of exactly how something should be done. And once that internal standard exists, anything short of it feels like falling short. Psychologists call this the vision-execution gap. Your cognitive ability is strong enough to imagine a near-perfect outcome. But reality, with all its friction, timing, and human limitation, rarely matches what the mind can architect. For the average person, good enough is an easy place to land. For a highly intelligent person, good enough can feel like a quiet personal failure, even when everyone around them is genuinely impressed. The cruelest part? The higher the intelligence, the higher the invisible bar. Walk into any room with a highly intelligent person and something interesting happens. They notice things, not just details, patterns, inconsistencies. The thing someone said that contradicts what they said 10 minutes ago. The policy that claims to solve a problem but structurally makes it worse. The social dynamic that everyone's participating in but nobody's naming. This heightened pattern recognition is genuinely valuable, but it comes at a real cost. When you can't unsee inconsistency, when logical gaps and quiet hypocrisies register automatically, the world can start to feel profoundly frustrating. Exhausting even. Moral psychology research consistently shows that individuals with stronger reasoning capacity experience sharper emotional responses to perceived unfairness, not because they're more emotional, but because they more fully understand the weight of what's happening. Seeing clearly is a gift, but it's a gift that doesn't come with a pause button. You'd assume that being highly intelligent makes decisions easier. It doesn't. It makes them harder. Because an intelligent mind doesn't see two options. It sees 14. It sees the second-order consequences. The variables that depend on other variables. The ways the most logical choice can still go wrong for reasons that have nothing to do with logic. Behavioral science has a name for this, analysis paralysis. And research consistently shows it correlates with higher cognitive engagement. The more clearly you can think through a problem, the more your brain generates competing pathways, and the harder it becomes to simply pick one and move. For highly intelligent people, what looks like indecision from the outside is often a mind working at full capacity, simultaneously running scenarios that most people never even think to consider. Psychologist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl proposed that human beings are not primarily driven by pleasure or survival. They are driven by meaning. For highly intelligent individuals, this drive tends to be overwhelming. Surface-level success, the promotion, the salary, the social approval, rarely satisfies for long. Because an intelligent mind keeps asking the question underneath the question. Why does this matter? What is this actually for? Is this the life I actually want or the life I fell into? These aren't philosophical hobbies. For many high IQ individuals, they're constant background noise. A persistent restlessness that conventional achievement never quite quiets. The search for meaning isn't a luxury for these individuals. It's a psychological necessity. And when life doesn't offer clear answers, that search can become quietly exhausting. Here's the one that rarely gets said out loud. Many highly intelligent people are perfectly functional in social settings. They can hold a conversation. They can make people laugh. They can navigate a room with ease. But privately, there's an entire world of thought, question, and observation that almost never gets expressed. Not because they're hiding it, but because there's rarely a space where it genuinely fits. Researchers studying intellectual giftedness in adults consistently identify this inner isolation as one of its most quietly painful dimensions. It's not resentment. It's not bitterness. It's simply the experience of carrying a rich, complex inner life with very few places to put it down. Not dramatic loneliness, just quiet, persistent, and deeply human. Here's what all of this adds up to. Intelligence is not a single advantage. It is a particular relationship with the world. One that opens certain doors and quietly closes others. One that sharpens certain abilities and makes certain ordinary comforts surprisingly hard to reach. The struggles we've explored today aren't complaints. They're not excuses. They're real, documented, human experiences that deserve to be understood, not just by the people around highly intelligent individuals, but by those individuals themselves. Because sometimes the most powerful thing a searching mind can find is a framework that finally explains its own experience. If this video gave you even one moment of that's exactly it, that feeling of being seen, then it did exactly what it was supposed to do. Hit that like button if any of this resonated. It genuinely helps this channel reach people who need to hear this. Subscribe if you want more honest, research-backed explorations of how the human mind actually works. And the next video? We're going deep on why emotionally intelligent people face their own invisible set of struggles, and why the two are more connected than most people realize. I'll see you there.